12 million BC, Na'vi origins and the first Toruk Makto. Roughly 12 million years ago, a native humanoid species known as the Na'vi began to evolve on the moon of Pandora in the Alpha Centauri system, 4.37 light-years from Earth. Over millennia, they developed a rich culture attuned to Pandora's global biosphere, the deity Awa. One Omaticaya clan's home tree stood for over 20,000 years, and Na'vi oral history, known as the First Songs, has been recorded for at least 16,000 years. In the 9th century BC, an event remembered as Toruk, the first flight, took place. In 837 BCE, a young Na'vi named Entu becomes the first Toruk Makto, riding the Great Leonopteryx, in order to unite Pandora's clans and save the sacred Tree of Souls from a volcanic eruption. With help from allies, the disaster is averted. This ancient tale is depicted in the Cirque du Soleil show Toruk, the First Flight. 1912, the Titanic disaster. In April 1912, the luxury liner RMS Titanic, the largest ship ever built and deemed unsinkable, sets out across the Atlantic, an early 20th century symbol of human technological progress and pride. Aboard is 17-year-old Rose DeWitt Bukater, an upper-class young woman suffocating under the expectations of high society and a stifling engagement to Cal Hockley, a wealthy steel tycoon's heir. Despairing of her gilded cage, Rose contemplates leaping from the ship's stern one cold night, only to be saved by a courageous third-class passenger, Jack Dawson. Jack is a penniless artist who won his Titanic ticket in a poker game, and his zest for life and freedom instantly intrigues Rose. Thus begins an unlikely, passionate romance across class lines. Jack opens Rose's eyes to the world beyond her oppressions, dancing joyously with immigrants in steerage, sharing dreams under the stars, while Rose inspires Jack with her wit, strength, and the promise that love can bridge any divide. Their bond unfolds in secret corners of the magnificent ship, even as Cal and Rose's aristocratic mother Ruth attempt to keep them apart. Ultimately, Rose chooses love and authenticity over wealth, deciding to flee with Jack at the next port. But fate intervenes on the night of April 14, 1912. Titanic strikes an iceberg that tears a fatal gash in its hull. As the ship's crew and passengers confront the reality that the pride of mankind is doomed to sink, chaos and courage emerge in equal measure. Jack and Rose find themselves fighting not just for their love, but for their lives amid the freezing waters and frantic evacuation. They brave flooding corridors and collapsing decks, even enduring Cal's violent desperation. He chases them with a pistol in the flooding first-class dining room in a jealous rage. In the end, Titanic's strict class-segregated lifeboat protocol leaves Jack and Rose clinging to each other in the icy ocean after the great ship breaks in two and vanishes beneath the waves. Jack helps Rose onto a floating piece of debris, ensuring she has a chance to survive, while he succumbs to hypothermia in the freezing water. He dies telling her to live a full life and never give up, a promise Rose keeps, as we will see later. She is rescued by a returning lifeboat and later the RMS Carpathia, choosing in that moment to adopt Jack's last name Dawson and start anew, free from the shackles of her old identity. The tragedy claims over 1,500 lives, including most of the men below decks and Titanic's own valiant captain, underscoring the danger of hubris in the face of nature's destructive power. And if you're enjoying this video, make sure to like and subscribe and stick around to see what happened to Rose. 1982. A new breed of piranha. By the late 20th century, humanity's scientific reach began to extend into the code of life itself. In 1982, a Jamaican resort's idyllic facade shatters when genetically engineered piranhas begin terrorizing the coast, having developed the shocking ability to fly. Diving instructor Anne Kimbrough leads the fight for survival after her own student falls victim, teaming up with biochemist Tyler Sherman, who reveals he was part of the military experiment that created these deadly creatures. Anne's estranged husband, Police Chief Steve Kimbrough, initially doubts the bizarre threat but soon joins the battle as the carnivorous swarm attacks beachgoers en masse. In a desperate climax beneath the waves, Anne plants explosives on the sunken wreck that the piranha have made their nest. Although Tyler is eaten in the attempt, Anne escapes just in time as the explosion obliterates the mutant school. The nightmare ends, but the Club Elysium incident becomes a cautionary tale about the peril of playing God with nature's designs. 1984. Skynet's first strike. A frightening glimpse of the future arrived in the mid-1980s. Los Angeles became the battleground for a war across time. Sarah Connor, an unassuming waitress, finds herself hunted by a relentless cyborg assassin known as a Terminator, sent from the year 2029 to prevent Sarah from ever giving birth to her future son, John. Kyle Reese, a battle-hardened human soldier from that post-apocalyptic future, arrives to protect her, explaining that an AI defense network called Skynet launched a nuclear holocaust and now seeks to erase John, the destined leader of the human resistance. As they flee through the city, the Terminator, a model T-800, guns down anyone in its path, exemplifying an emotionless technological menace that feels no pity or fear. Sarah transforms over the course of the ordeal, witnessing the selfless bravery of Kyle, who becomes her lover and John's father, and the terrifying cost of Skynet's rise. She evolves from a frightened civilian into a determined survivor. In a climactic showdown at an industrial plant, Sarah crushes the seemingly unstoppable T-800 in a hydraulic press, defeating the machine at great personal cost. Kyle sacrifices himself in the fight. She drives off into an uncertain future, pregnant with John, determined to train him for the war to come. While the incident was mostly covered up or dismissed as an explosion, Cyberdyne Systems secretly recovered wreckage of the cyborg, including its shattered CPU chip and a robotic arm. Studying this futuristic tech jump-started breakthroughs in microprocessors and artificial intelligence. In a dark twist of fate, Kyle Reese and Sarah Connor's defeat of the Terminator planted the seeds of Skynet's creation. 1989. First contact in the abyss. Several years after the Terminator was destroyed, humanity encountered intelligent alien life for the first time in the depths of Earth's ocean. When a nuclear submarine mysteriously sinks, a civilian underwater drilling platform, Deep Core, is enlisted for the search and rescue mission. Virgil Bud Brigman and his estranged wife, Lindsay, lead the divers. Aboard, a SEAL team led by Lieutenant Hiram Coffey struggles with paranoia and secretly arms a salvaged nuclear warhead. Amid the storm, the crew witnesses translucent, manta-like alien entities, non-terrestrial intelligences, NTIs, who are studying them curiously, proving they mean no immediate harm. Lindsay realizes the deep-sea aliens are not hostile, but Coffey views them as a threat and hijacks the nuke. During the frantic chase, Lindsay drowns but is revived by Bud. Bud then descends in an experimental suit to disarm the warhead, knowing full well it will be a one-way trip. But after succeeding, he is saved by the shimmering NTIs, who bring him aboard their luminous craft. There, Bud sees images of human conflict. The aliens then raise massive tsunami waves, only to halt them after reading Bud's heartfelt message to Lindsay. His demonstration of love and compassion moves them to spare the human race. The alien ship then rises, bringing all survivors to the surface. The Abyss encounter affected global culture. It was proof that advanced life existed beyond humanity, prompting a brief moment of unity and reflection among nations. This first contact also spurred new scientific inquiry into extraterrestrial life and undersea exploration. What do you think? Did Cameron mean for these worlds to overlap? Did the Abyss inform the way of water, for example? We move next to 1994. True Lies sees nuclear terror crisis averted. The mid-1990s brought an extreme threat from within. In 1994, a shadowy Islamist extremist group called Crimson Jihad smuggles 4 nuclear warheads into the U.S., hidden inside statues. Led by fanatical Salim Abu Aziz, the terrorists staged their Florida Keys operation, hoping to coerce the U.S. into withdrawing all military forces from the Persian Gulf by threatening American cities with nuclear holocaust. To prove their intent, Aziz announces he'll detonate one of the warheads on a remote uninhabited island. However, an elite U.S. counterterrorism unit, Omega Sector, swings into action. Veteran agent Harry Tasker had been tracking Aziz for months, from a Swiss mansion to a pursuit through Washington, D.C.'s Georgetown Park. After a violent confrontation, Harry chases the terrorist on a commandeered police horse through city streets and into a glass elevator, but Aziz escapes on a stolen motorcycle. The investigation takes an unexpected turn when Harry discovers his neglected wife, Helen, secretly meeting a man named Simon. Helen, seeking adventure, had fallen for Simon's claims of being a spy. Learning Simon was merely a lying used car salesman, Harry involves Helen in a fake mission to reignite their marriage. This backfires spectacularly when Aziz's men captures them both, taking the couple to the terrorists' island base. Following a spectacular escape, U.S. Marine Harrier jets obliterate 2 of the nukes on the overseas highway, collapsing sections of the 7-mile bridge. Harry rescues Helen from a speeding limousine via helicopter before it plunges into the water. A 3rd nuke then detonates on the uninhabited island as planned, producing a blinding mushroom cloud. The crisis culminates in downtown Miami, where Aziz has kidnapped Harry's daughter and seized an under-construction office tower with the final warhead. Harry commandeers a Harrier jet for a daring aerial rescue, pulling his daughter to safety. Aziz attacks them mid-flight but slips, his backpack catching on an AIM-9 Sidewinder missile that Harry then fires directly into the terrorists' hovering helicopter, obliterating Crimson Jihad's leadership. The 1994 nuclear crisis was contained with no further loss of life. In the aftermath, Helen joined Omega Sector, transforming the Tasker family's lives into a partnership that would serve national security for years to come. 1995, Judgment Day postponed. Humanity averted another apocalyptic event just a year later. Following the 1984 Los Angeles incident, the recovered Terminator technology allowed Cyberdyne systems to make rapid strides in microprocessor development and neural net software. By 1995, engineer Miles Dyson had secretly developed Skynet's Core, a revolutionary AI defense network, under Cyberdyne's roof. Skynet's activation date loomed on the calendar, August 4, 1997, when it would gain control of U.S. strategic arsenals. In an unaltered timeline, Skynet was destined to achieve self-awareness on August 29, 1997, declare humanity a threat with cold machine logic, and launch a nuclear-first strike that same day. This cataclysm, Judgment Day, would have exterminated over 3 billion lives and plunged the world into a post-apocalyptic war between man and machine. But 1995 becomes the turning point that averted doomsday. Skynet makes a second attempt to erase John Connor by sending back the T-1000, a liquid metal shape-shifting assassin nearly impossible to destroy. The Resistance counters by reprogramming one of the old Series 800 Model 101 Terminators and sending it back as John's protector. Young John, now 10 and living in foster care, is shocked to find the familiar cyborg as his guardian, but quickly bonds with Uncle Bob and teaches it about human slang, friendship, and morality. After a dramatic shopping mall rendezvous and then the rescue of Sarah Connor from the psychiatric hospital where she'd been confined for warning about Skynet, the unlikely trio goes on the run from the T-1000. Sarah, battle-hardened and haunted by visions of nuclear Judgment Day, initially views the Terminator only as a tool, but over time even she is moved by how this machine dutifully protects her son. Discovering that Cyberdyne would create Skynet based on salvaged parts from the first Terminator, Sarah attempts to kill lead engineer Miles Dyson. However, John convinces Sarah and the remorseful Dyson to work together instead. In a night battle, they assault Cyberdyne's California headquarters and destroy the lab housing Skynet's work in progress and the recovered 1984 Terminator components. Miles Dyson, struck by the moral implications of his creation, heroically sacrifices himself to blow up the facility, ensuring the AI could not be completed. The finale unfolds in a steel mill, where the relentless T-1000 is lured into a vat of molten metal and obliterated. In the aftermath, the loyal T-800 chooses to terminate itself, insisting its own CPU must be destroyed to eliminate any remaining trace of Skynet's genesis. John tearfully obeys, lowering his friend into the molten steel. As the Terminator gives a final thumbs up, it cements one of the most poignant images of man and machine in harmony. Police and federal agencies were left picking through the rubble of a mysteriously violent industrial accident. Skynet's original Judgment Day in 1997 was postponed indefinitely, creating a new timeline where humanity gained a reprieve from instant annihilation. However, the specter of Skynet never fully fades. 1997, Titanic Revisited. Nearly 85 years after the Titanic's sinking, the lessons of its tragedy resurface through Rose's memories. Treasure hunter Brock Lovett leads a high-tech expedition to the Titanic wreck, combing the ocean floor in the exploratory vessel Academic Keldysh for a fabled blue diamond called the Heart of the Ocean. After recovering a safe from the sunken ship, Brock's team instead finds a sketch of a nude young woman wearing that very jewel, drawn on the Titanic the day it sank. This leads them to Rose, now a 100-year-old woman living quietly in America, who reveals that she is the girl in the drawing. Rose and her granddaughter Lizzie fly to the Keldysh, where Brock hopes Rose's memories will pinpoint the diamond's location. In a radiant moment of living history, Rose gazes at the deep-sea images of the ruined ship and begins to recount the full tale of her voyage on Titanic. Over the course of an evening, as Lovett's crew listens enraptured, Rose's narrative brings to life the world of 1912, her romance with Jack, and the details of the disaster that claimed her great love. For Brock, who has dedicated years to chasing this sunken treasure, Rose's story is humbling. He started the expedition fixated on the heart of the ocean's monetary value, but by the time Rose finishes, Brock realizes he never truly understood the tragedy's human depth until now. He experiences a change of heart, symbolically letting go of his greed as he abandons his search. That night, Rose, carrying the secret she's held for decades, steps alone to the stern of the research ship. In her wrinkled hand is the very diamond Brock sought, which Cal Hockley had given her. She's kept it hidden since the sinking. In a cathartic act, Rose releases the jewel into the sea, letting it return to Titanic's resting place. In her cabin afterwards, her eyes close peacefully, and she's reunited with Jack in Titanic's sunlit grand staircase. Early 21st century, corporate rise and a world in flux. The dawn of the 21st century saw humanity at a crossroads. Environmental strains, overpopulation, pollution, and climate change were pushing Earth to its limits. At the same time, tech corporations were rising as global powers, often rivaling nation-states. By the mid-21st century, Earth's governments had formed the Interplanetary Commerce Administration, ICA, to regulate off-world exploitation, essentially deputizing megacorps like the RDA to lead humanity's expansion in exchange for oversight. Through it all, Earth's environment grew more desperate. Species went extinct, the last Bengal tiger vanished by 2050, and climate disasters worsened. Yet these hardships only accelerated humanity's drive outward. In 2048, the RDA unveiled plans for an ambitious space colonization program. The stage was set for the next era, where the mistakes and lessons of the 20th century would inform humanity's approach to new worlds. Late 21st century, Pandora beckons. As Earth's situation deteriorated in the late 21st century, humanity found a beacon of hope. Astronomers had long been scanning for habitable exoplanets, and between 2050 and 2077 they identified Polyphemus, a gas giant in the Alpha Centauri system, and its lush moon Pandora as candidates. Armed with exclusive mining and research rights from the ICA, the RDA began pouring resources into interstellar travel. In 2084, the ISV Bradbury starship deployed the first unmanned probes to Pandora's surface, remote rovers that transmitted tantalizing images of jungle back to Earth. These robotic explorers confirmed a world with life and rich in a superconductive mineral called unobtainium. Unobtainium promised to solve Earth's energy crisis, potentially serving as a room-temperature superconductor to revolutionize power grids. The late 21st century became a frantic race to reach Pandora, because Earth teetered on the brink, politically fractured and dominated by a handful of megacorporations. Resource shortages and climate migration led to short, bloody wars. In one of these conflicts, a young Marine named Miles Quaritch saw action in Nigeria, and the lessons he learned about asymmetric warfare would later shape RDA strategy on Pandora. Meanwhile, man-made ecological collapse was imminent. Mass extinction was in full swing, most large land animals gone, and most forests had been turned to desert by pollution. So Pandora represented not just profit, but survival, a chance at a new home. On the eve of the 22nd century, the first wave of human colonists prepared to depart for Pandora. Early 22nd century, colonization begins. Humanity's first forays to Pandora begin in the 2110s. According to James Cameron, the first filmed story is set roughly 35 years after the start of Pandora's colonization, implying 2119 as the arrival of the first human settlers. In the following decades, the RDA establishes a permanent foothold on Pandora. They construct the main colony base, Hell's Gate, and mining facilities in the moon's equatorial regions. Early pioneers explore Pandora's wonders. The first explorers to see the Hallelujah Mountains, Pandora's floating peaks, are awestruck, though their reports are met with skepticism back on Earth. The RDA also discovers the Pandoran atmosphere is poisonous to humans, filled with CO2 and other gases, necessitating the use of exopacks and specialized avatars for survival. During this time, small-scale encounters with the Na'vi occur. It's known that initial relations were tense, but not yet outright war. The RDA eventually funds the Avatar program, using hybrid human-Na'vi clone bodies, not only for scientific research, but originally as a way to facilitate labor and diplomacy with the Na'vi. In 2124, xenobotanist Dr. Grace Augustine arrives on Pandora. Grace becomes one of the first 20 Avatar drivers, studying Pandora's ecosystem and the Na'vi up close. By this time, full-scale mining of unobtainium is underway, and the RDA's SecOps force protects company assets on Pandora. 2122, the Nostromo incident. Long before the LV-426 colony went dark, there were whispers about an earlier disaster in the same system, the so-called Nostromo incident. Officially, the USCSS Nostromo, a commercial towing vessel, was listed as lost on its return journey to Earth. But according to classified Wayland-Yutani reports, the Nostromo was diverted by its onboard computer to investigate a signal from LV-426. What the crew found there has never been fully disclosed, but it's believed that they were the first unfortunate souls to stumble upon a xenomorph hive, a tragedy, but not an accident. 2130s to 2142. Peaceful cooperation on Pandora. Back on Pandora, Grace Augustine deepens her understanding of Pandora and gains the Navi's respect. She suspects the entire moon is a living network, which she later identifies as the Pandora Neural Network, and her team's scientific outreach gradually builds goodwill with some clans. In 2136, Neytiri is born to Atukon and Moat of the Omaticaya clan. Around 2138, a crisis occurs when a mysterious illness strikes the Omaticaya and other Navi, a direct result of water contamination by RDA mining activities. Grace teams up with the spiritual leader Moat to find a cure, ultimately using an extract from a Pandoran flower to heal the sick. This act, documented in the comic Avatar, Adapt or Die, earns Grace enormous trust among the Omaticaya. Impressed by her goodwill, the clan permits Grace to establish a school to teach Navi children about humans. In 2142, Grace founds a schoolhouse for Navi youth near Hell's Gate. For a decade, she teaches English, science, and human culture to a new generation of Navi, including Neytiri and her older sister Silwanen, while also learning about Navi language and lore. This period is a high point of human-Navi cooperation. Grace's vision is to create a bridge between the two peoples. By all accounts, the Navi students are eager and the experiment shows promise, at least initially. Unfortunately, this harmony is not to last. 2142 to 2152, rising tensions. As RDA mining operations expand, relations deteriorate. The Navi grow increasingly uneasy about the relentless deforestation and sacred sites being threatened by the Sky People. By 2152, after 10 years of Grace's school, tensions boil over. Silwanen and other Navi youths become outraged at RDA bulldozers tearing up forests near their home. In a tragic incident, Silwanen leads a small student protest that turns violent. They attack an RDA bulldozer in an attempt to halt the destruction. RDA SecOps troops respond with lethal force. Silwanen and several Navi teens are gunned down by the RDA soldiers. Grace manages to save some of the children, but Silwanen's death is a devastating blow. The Omaticaya clan, enraged by the killing, immediately shut down all contact. Grace's school is permanently closed, and she is expelled from the Omaticaya's trust. This effectively ends any diplomatic progress. Silwanen's demise also alters the clan's future. Neytiri must take her late sister's place as Sahik in training and as Tsute's future mate. From this point on, most Navi view the humans only as dangerous invaders, not as teachers or friends. Meanwhile, conflict and chaos on Earth continue to escalate in the mid-2140s. One major conflict, an intracontinental war, erupts, and Marine Jake Sully, born 2126, serves in combat in Venezuela, where he suffers a spinal injury that leaves him paralyzed from the waist down. Around the same time, RDA Security Chief Colonel Miles Quaritch does multiple combat tours. These wars and the deteriorating environment reduce Earth to a dystopia of rogue factions and rampant violence. As Jake later notes, people will kill a person for the paper in his wallet. It's against this backdrop that an opportunity arises. The RDA's Avatar program needs a replacement driver. 2145 to 2149, Jake Sully is recruited. In 2145, Jake Sully's twin brother Tom is recruited to train for the Avatar program. Tom is a PhD scientist and he spends 3 years preparing for the Pandora mission, befriending fellow trainee Norm Spellman in the process. However, in 2148, weeks before his departure, Tom is murdered in a random robbery, killed for the paper in his wallet. His death leaves the Avatar program short one essential driver. Because Jake is Tom's identical twin, the RDA offers Jake the chance to take his brother's place. Jake, a former Marine now using a wheelchair and struggling for purpose, agrees to the mission. He is promised the cost of an expensive spinal surgery in exchange for his cooperation. In 2148, Jake departs Earth aboard the ISV Venture Star, bound for Pandora. The interstellar journey takes 6 years with the passengers in cryosleep. During the long transit, 2148 to 2154, Earth's situation continues deteriorating. The RDA, now effectively a government unto itself, eyes Pandora not just for unobtainium, but as a new world to colonize for humanity's survival. 2154 AD, Jake's arrival and the First Pandoran War. 2154 is the pivotal year in which the events of Avatar 2009 unfold. Jake Sully awakens from cryo on May 19, 2154, when the ISV Venture Star reaches Pandora. Jake meets Grace Augustine and Colonel Quaritch for the first time. Grace is initially dismayed that a grunt is replacing his highly trained scientist twin, straining their relationship. Nonetheless, Jake is introduced to his avatar, a tall blue-skinned Navi-human hybrid body grown from Tom's DNA combined with Navi genetic stock. But soon, Jake takes control of his avatar and experiences Pandora's jungles in person. Alongside Grace, in her own avatar, and Norm, Jake travels out from Hell's Gate on a scientific expedition. In the forest, Jake is separated from the group when he is attacked by a Thanator. Lost after nightfall, he is beset by a pack of viper wolves and fights desperately to survive. At this critical moment, Neytiri intervenes and saves Jake, killing the creatures. Although Neytiri initially distrusts Jake, a sign from Awa, wood sprites gathering around him, changes her mind. She brings Jake to Home Tree, the ancestral home of the Omaticaya clan. There, Jake meets Neytiri's parents, Atu Khan and Moat. The clan agrees to test Jake rather than kill him, hoping to learn more about the Sky People. Neytiri is assigned to teach Jake their ways. Over the next months, Jake lives among the Omaticaya in his avatar body, learning to hunt, speak the Na'vi language, and bond with Pandora's life forms. He trains hard to become a hunter and even tames his own Ikron. All this time, Jake secretly reports back to Quaritch and Parker Selfridge, the RDA administrator, about the Na'vi and their home, which sits atop a rich unobtainium deposit. Quaritch pressures Jake to convince the Omaticaya to relocate peacefully, or else the RDA will forcibly remove them. This conflict weighs on Jake as he grows to admire the Na'vi. He falls in love with Neytiri and begins to question his loyalties. Jake successfully passes all the tests to become one of the Omaticaya. He is officially accepted into the clan, and that same night he and Neytiri choose each other as mates before Awa. But Jake's reports to the RDA have already set a terrible chain of events in motion. When Jake and Neytiri awake on August 19th after their night at the Tree of Voices, they discover bulldozers plowing through the sacred site, sent by the RDA. Enraged, Jake attacks the bulldozer and tries to stop the destruction, but in doing so, he blows his cover. Colonel Quaritch immediately pulls Jake out of his avatar link. Jake and Grace are detained for betraying the company. Quaritch, having lost patience with any diplomacy, convinces Selfridge to greenlight the destruction of Home Tree. Despite Grace's protests that Home Tree's destruction could irreparably damage Pandora's neural network, the RDA opts for force. On August 20th, 2154, Quaritch's gunships unleash missiles on Home Tree. The tree is shattered and collapses to the ground. Many Na'vi are killed in the assault, including Atu Khan, Neytiri's father. Neytiri, witnessing her home and father fall, is devastated. In the chaos, Jake and Norm attempt to help in their avatar forms, but when the Na'vi learn of Jake's betrayal, they turn on him in anger. Quaritch's forces capture Jake, Grace, and Norm, disconnecting them. Grace is gravely wounded by Quaritch as they escape Hell's Gate. Jake knows there is only one chance to regain the Na'vi's trust. He must perform a grand symbolic act. Jake, with the help of Trudy, Norm, and a few allies, escapes to the Tree of Souls. There, on August 21st, Jake tames Toruk, the great Leonopteryx. By riding the fearsome Toruk, Jake becomes Toruk Makto, a figure of Na'vi legend. He swoops down to the refugees of the Omaticaya, and this act convinces Neytiri and the clan to accept Jake again. He pleads with Moat to help save Grace's life by transferring Grace's human consciousness into her avatar body at the Tree of Souls. They perform the ritual that night, but the injuries are too severe. Grace dies in Jake's arms, though not before telling him she is with Awa. As the RDA prepares a final assault to annihilate the Na'vi resistance, Jake and Neytiri unite 15 Na'vi clans from across Pandora's regions, forest, plains, and aerial tribes, to stand against the humans. At dawn on August 23, 2154, the RDA launches a massive offensive against the sacred Tree of Souls, intending to destroy the Na'vi's spiritual heart. Miles Quaritch leads a fleet of gunships to drop bombs on the tree. Jake, atop Toruk, coordinates the Na'vi defense. A fierce aerial battle ensues over the floating mountains and forest. The Na'vi, with their dire horses, Ikron, and dozens of clans, suffer heavy losses against the RDA's mechanized forces, but then Pandora itself intervenes. Awa answers Neytiri's prayer by sending wildlife, titanotheres, and swarms of banshees to attack the human forces. During the battle, Trudy is shot down and killed, as is Sute. Quaritch, in his AMP suit, faces Jake and Neytiri on the ground. In the final showdown, Quaritch nearly kills Jake by breaching his avatar link unit, but Neytiri intervenes and kills Quaritch with 2 arrows to the chest. The Na'vi win the battle. In the aftermath, the defeated RDA personnel are expelled from Pandora. Scores of human soldiers and workers are forced to march to the shuttle transports under Na'vi guard, leaving the moon for good, with the exception of a few trusted scientists like Norm who are allowed to stay. At the Tree of Souls on August 24th, Jake records one final video log and then undergoes the ritual of consciousness transfer, permanently moving his mind into his avatar body. 2155 to 2164. Aftermath. With the RDA gone, the Na'vi enjoy a brief time of peace. Jake, now leader of the Omaticaya, works to unite the scattered clans and help them recover from the war. The Omaticaya relocate away from the destroyed home tree. For a time, they set up a temporary home in the Hallelujah Mountains near the abandoned Hell's Gate facility. In the months after the battle, Jake faces challenges to his leadership. In September 2154, as seen in Avatar The Next Shadow, a rival named Arvok, manipulated by his parents who resent Jake's leadership, attempts to assassinate Jake in a ritual duel. Jake is injured and poisoned, but Moat manages to cure him with a sacred antidote, and the conspirators are exiled from the clan. Through this episode, Jake earns a deeper respect from the Omaticaya, having survived the challenge without resorting to harsh retribution. He solidifies his role as clan leader. In the years that follow, Jake and Neytiri start a family. Netaim, their first son, is born in 2155, just a few months after the war. He is followed by an adopted daughter, Kiri, born mysteriously from Grace Augustine's inert avatar around the same time. Jake and Neytiri raise Kiri as their own. Their second son, Loak, is born about a year later, and some years after that, a second daughter, Tuktere, is born in 2163. Also growing up among them is Miles' Spider Socorro, a human boy born on Pandora in 2154. Spider is the son of Quaritch's late pilot Paz Socorro. As an infant, he was stranded on Pandora and was essentially adopted by the remaining humans and tolerated by the Na'vi. Jake, though initially wary of Spider, allows him to tag along with his kids, and Spider comes to see Jake and Neytiri as parental figures. Meanwhile, Earth's ecological death spiral accelerates. By the 2160s, Earth's environment is an extinction-level crisis for humanity. The RDA now turns its attention back to Pandora with renewed determination. The company's new goal is to colonize Pandora, a lifeboat for Earth's population. The Na'vi, for their part, suspect the Sky People might return. Under Jake's guidance, the clans spend these years quietly preparing for the possibility of another invasion. Hunters practice with captured human weapons, and the Na'vi develop strategies to unite quickly in wartime. This calm before the storm lasts about 14 years, but it will soon end. 2168 to 2169, the RDA's return. In January 2168, deep space sensors detect new RDA starships in the Alpha Centauri system. After 15 years, the Sky People return to Pandora in force. Jake and Neytiri are on a date when they see a fiery object streak across the sky, the incoming RDA fleet entering orbit. This marks the start of the Second Pandoran War, as the Na'vi call it. Jake wastes no time rallying the Omaticaya and their allies. According to the graphic novel Avatar: The High Ground, Jake organizes a preemptive strike in space. Using commandeered shuttlecraft and Na'vi trained in zero-G, Jake leads a raiding party into orbit to ambush the incoming RDA forces. In an intense battle aboard the ISV Venture Star, Jake's team manages to destroy at least one of the approaching ships and kills RDA personnel, such as an RDA pilot named Josh Winslow. However, the RDA's numbers and technology are overwhelming. Despite the Na'vi's courage, the bulk of the RDA fleet survives. Once on the ground, the RDA moves swiftly to secure their foothold. Heavily armed forces under General Francis Ardmore retake the old Hell's Gate base and begin constructing a new HQ. The RDA raises a huge swath of rainforest and builds the city of Bridgehead, a fortified base complete with a 3-kilometer security perimeter and advanced defenses. In a matter of months, Bridgehead becomes a sprawling colony. The Sky People have returned in greater numbers than ever, intent on never being expelled again. Jake's band of insurgents can only harass the edges of this occupation. They carry out guerrilla raids on RDA supply lines and try to slow the RDA's expansion, but by 2169 the humans have established dominance in the region around Bridgehead. One of the RDA's objectives this time is to exploit regions of Pandora previously untouched by humans. In Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora, the focus is on the western frontier of Pandora. By 2169, RDA forces push into those frontier lands, encountering new Na'vi clans. Notably, this is when the secret Ambassador program children resurface. The Na'vi youths whom Dr. Cortez hid in cryo back in 2154 are awakened after 15 years of sleep. They emerge into a changed world, a Pandora at war once again, and must decide where they stand. Guided by sympathetic humans like Cortez and the surviving scientists, these young Na'vi join Jake's resistance. One of them, a child named Solek from the lost Sarentu clan, becomes a key figure. As depicted in Frontiers of Pandora, Solek and others traverse the western frontier, seeking to unite disparate clans like the Aranahe and Tapani clans. The conflict in 2169 is fierce. The RDA, now led on Pandora by Ardmore and administrators like John Mercer and Angela Harding, launch a campaign to oppress the western frontier. The Na'vi resistance fights back in a series of skirmishes and sabotage operations. Many lives are lost on both sides. Senior RDA leaders are assassinated. Both Mercer and Captain Harding are killed in the fighting. For the Na'vi, this is justice. These two had been responsible for the Sorrentu clan massacre decades ago. The Na'vi also suffer losses. For example, the Na'vi chieftain Mokasa dies in battle in 2169. By the end of that year, the RDA's western expansion is blunted, but the humans still hold the advantage overall. 2170. Ocean War. Most of Avatar: The Way of Water is set in this year. Having failed to crush the Na'vi, the RDA shift strategies. They deploy new specialized forces. The RDA's recombinant program has cloned and recombined the memories of dead soldiers into Na'vi bodies. Quaritch is reincarnated as a recombinant avatar, and is put in charge of a select unit of recom soldiers. Their mission? Hunt down and eliminate Jake Sully. Quaritch's vendetta against Jake now continues in a Na'vi body. His unit stumbles upon the Sully children while on patrol, and while Jake's children narrowly escape, Quaritch manages to capture Spider, who is revealed to be his son. Jake, knowing that he and his family are targets, makes a painful decision to protect his clan. He steps down from leadership and takes his family into hiding, reasoning that the enemy will follow him rather than endanger the clan. The whole family flee the forest and seek refuge far across the ocean. By invoking Uturu, the Na'vi tradition of seeking sanctuary, they are taken in by the Metkayina, a reef-dwelling Na'vi clan led by Tonowari and Ronal. Adjusting to life on the sea, the Sullys spend months with the Metkayina, learning to swim and free dive, and taming the water creatures, like the Ilu. There is initial tension. Some Metkayina mock the forest Na'vi for their different build and Jake's half-breed children. But over time, they all become part of the reef community. Jake's second son, Loak, forms a profound bond with a Tulkun called Payakan, an outcast, which teaches him empathy and courage. War, however, soon finds them. Frustrated at being unable to locate Jake, Quaritch traces his path to the eastern seaboard with Spider as his reluctant guide. To flush out Jake, Quaritch's recom unit teams up with the RDA's whaling division, which operates massive Sea Dragon vessels. The Tulkun hunters, led by Captain Mick Scoresby, begin terrorizing the ocean clans. They burn down a Tayunui outpost village and start slaughtering Tulkuns. The RDA's aim is twofold: smoke out Jake and exploit a newly discovered Pandoran resource called Amrita. This is a golden liquid that halts human aging indefinitely, and one jar is worth far more than a kilogram of unobtainium. Scoresby's crew kills a Tulkun mother named Roa, who was the spirit sister of Metkayina chiefess Ronal, and her calf. This atrocity galvanizes the reef people and the Sullys to fight back. They decide to confront Quaritch. In the meantime, Loak and friends go exploring and end up held hostage by Quaritch, and a series of escalating clashes leads to an all-out battle around the Three Brothers Islands. During the skirmish at Three Brothers, Payakan the Tulkun joins the fight on Loak's side, wreaking havoc on the Sea Dragon ship. Many of Quaritch's recom soldiers are killed in action, picked off by Na'vi or by Pandora's creatures. The Na'vi suffer a heartbreaking loss as well. Neteyam is shot and killed while rescuing his siblings from Quaritch's team. The climactic duel comes down to Jake versus Quaritch once more. On the sinking wreck of the Sea Dragon, Jake and Neytiri fight Quaritch to save their remaining children. Neytiri even captures Spider and holds a knife to him, nearly killing the boy to force Quaritch to stand down. In the end, Quaritch is overpowered and loses consciousness, left drowning in the depths while Jake escapes. Jake himself nearly blacks out but is saved by Loak and Payakan. Nearby, Spider cannot watch his father die. The boy rescues Quaritch, dragging him to safety, but Spider refuses to go with him and reunites with the Sullys instead. Quaritch, defeated, flies away alone to fight another day. With the immediate threat gone, Jake and his family return to the Metkayina village to mourn and regroup. Neytiri and Jake bid farewell to Neteyam in a traditional Metkayina ceremony, encasing his body in water and song. Afterwards, Jake approaches Tonowari and Ronal to pledge himself and his clan to the Metkayina, declaring that the reef is now their home too. Having originally intended to leave to keep danger away, Jake realizes that running is futile. Instead, they will stand and fight the RDA alongside their ocean brethren. 2169 and beyond. The upcoming Avatar Fire and Ash will pick up almost immediately where The Way of Water left off. The introduction of a new evil and antagonist in Varang looks set to shift the setting of the story again. Varang is the leader of the Ash People, and her clan lives in the shadow of a volcano. So Jake Quaritch and the rest of the characters look set to renew tensions amid active tectonics, magma flow this time around, but also at sea and in the lush jungle again. And beyond that, assuming there are more installments in Cameron's universe, Avatar 4 and 5 are rumored to jump forward in time at least 6 years, and it looks like the Na'vi and Earth are scheduled to collide in these tales. In this unified Cameron cinematic universe, the future of both Earth and Pandora hangs in the balance. Only the forthcoming chapters will tell us what comes next. If you enjoyed what we've done here, make sure to like and subscribe.